Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the final Finance and Facilities Committee meeting of the school year. It's June 23rd at 6:30 p.m. The meeting is now called to order. First order of business is for everybody to introduce themselves. I'm David Warner. I am the chair of this committee and parent of a proud graduate of Woodlands High School. Lisa?
I'm Lisa Raymond, Assistant Superintendent for Business.
Steve?
Steve Morton, parent of two of Woodland Middle High School.
Deborah?
Community member and ECP employee.
Yeah. Chris? Chris, we can't hear you. She's trying. All right, so work on that. We'll come back to you. Jim?
Jim Waiting with BBS Architects.
Carlos?
Good evening, Carlos Ramirez, Director of Technology and Chief Information Officer. Hey, Jim. Hello, everybody.
Doing Carlos.
Ashley?
Ashley Pineda, board trustee and parent of two.
Laser?
Laser Alert, Network Administrator.
Dave?
Hi, Dave Rizal, parent of two, pre-K and first grade.
Very good. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Ashley Moore, District Treasurer.
Jason?
Jason Lee with BBS Architects.
Jessica?
Good evening, Jessica Muldoon, parent of a soon-to-be first grader.
Katie?
Hi, I'm a parent of a soon-to-be seventh grader.
Chris, can you try again? I see you're muted. Okay. Nothing. Wait, she's probably gonna blip out and blip back in. Hey, Tanya, we're just in the midst of the introductions. Would you like to? Well, we can't quite hear you yet.
Sorry, here I am. Sorry about the hair. Okay.
It's great.
Hi.
It's fine.
Okay.
Hi. So, Tanya, how are you related to the Greenburgh Central School District?
Well, I'm a trustee.
There you go.
And I live here.
That works. That works.
Yes. In fact, I recently calculated that I've spent 21 years of my life in Greenburgh. That's quite an accomplishment.
Very
altogether.
good.
Yes.
And Chris Vallon is having technical difficulties and is logging out and logging back in, and we'll try and pick her up.
Okay.
And hope that her audio fixes itself. All right, so we're trying to make this a relatively straightforward and brief meeting. So the items to go over today are the project status for the many projects that we have. We have many irons in the fire, working towards improving our facilities overall. There are a couple of top level things just to come off the things that people have most asked about, and then we're going to go over and Lisa will do that for us. The status of every project we've got, and she's creating a spreadsheet on it. So the most frequently asked question is what's happening with the ECP main building repairs for the summer, because we're looking forward to a full-time in-person resumption of normal instruction for everybody. The two main questions were, are we going to have mid-August completion, and what happens if we don't have quite enough space to keep all the classes for the kids that are currently sitting in Lee F. Jackson. So what I've gotten from Mike Falcone regarding the ECP main building is he says, we can do it, we're on schedule. That's the short version. The longest pole in a tent at this moment is that They settled on what windows to order, and there's a 10-week turnaround on getting the windows manufactured. And he can work around it and open up the windows, hold them completely open, put fans in place, and then do weekend installations if he has to get past that. He can also do, so as far as I know, he's met with BBS architects and dealt with most of the other issues. Say we happen to have a couple of BBS architects with us. Jim, were you by any chance party to that meeting?
Anything regarding the mechanical system upgrades, I was not. That would have been one of our mechanical engineers, Carl Weber. I did receive a call from Mr. Falcone today while he was meeting with the contractor, where there was a question that came up and just wanted to have Carl's information so they could contact him directly, which I was able to provide them with. So I'm assuming that that conversation took place and everything was resolved with regard to the issue. Before I've been told, I had a meeting with Mike this morning just to kind of go over project status and upcoming work and the phase 1 stuff. And he said everything is moving forward according to plan. They haven't run into any issues as far as the design work goes with sizing of the pumps, and it's just a matter of getting materials on site and then going through with the work. So it sounds like everything is proceeding according to plan. He did send us a couple of invoice versions of the windows that were proposed to be installed. We had a chance to look at those, make comment, submit back with a request that, an upgrade to the windows be offered from the contractor, which they did. And I think we went forward and said that those would be suitable for the ECP building, and they've been ordered, as you mentioned.
And I have to tell you, David, Mike and I, if not daily, I literally have to tell you, Mike and I meet daily over ECP, and we go over every item that is to be done there. And he is right on it, up to the windows, which we know are, according to what Mike has told me, an 8 to 10 week lead. He's trying to push it. And if he can't, again, like Jim said, we will do it on the weekends, but we will be up and running by mid-August so that teachers can get in there. We can get it cleaned out. Sammy and Leo are in there. They're cleaning things out. Dawn Mail has her people in there, boxing things up so that we can get things done, so that we can get that building up and running for September.
Okay.
Do we have a start date, David? When we could get in?
What he has told me is don't wait for the entire project to be completed before you start doing the furniture stuff. That what he can do if he has to in order to make it work. So let's say there's a gap in your staffing towards the end of August. What you can do is you can get one room done, and the floor's done, and then you can populate that room with furniture. It's not the final week of the teacher prep, but you can do one room at a time during the course of the summer. And by the time you get to the point that you have to do the teacher prep, everything will be there. And if you don't have people that second week back, then you've already got most of your rooms populated and they can work around it.
So what day can they go in?
He said he's going to look at it's a 3-week turnaround, but I don't know what the opening date is. We have to talk to Mike about that. So
Right.
He said I can do a room in 3 weeks and then another room in 3 weeks and so on. So
Because our teachers, the teacher's last day is August 13th,
okay.
and it takes them a week to set up.
Okay. So I cannot swear that it's 3 weeks from today. Okay, we have to check on that.
Right.
All right. Chris, can you speak now? All right, that's disgusting. Okay, so I don't know if you can text. Try texting, and in the meantime, Ashley, would you like to say something?
Yeah, thank you, David. What I was gonna ask for is I think everyone's getting a little nervous with the timing, even though we had already spoken about it and we said it was going to come close to the wire, but we're confident it'll be done in time. I think what would be helpful is when we've taken on big projects like this, we sometimes will put together a Google spreadsheet with status and line items and have that updated on a weekly basis, Lisa, as you're going through having those conversations with Mike. And we could start really, just nailing down these exact details are done, this is pending, just to help with that whole conversation about how do we prioritize and how do we flex where we need to flex so that we can get this done. If we could put that together and share that out, at least on a weekly basis, I think that would be very helpful for everyone's informational purposes.
Okay.
Well, David, I think
Yes.
that Ashley has rained on our parade for the spreadsheet that we put together. We did put a spreadsheet together for everything that is happening in the district, including ECP and the updates on everything that is happening, whether it is in progress, completed, and the costs. So yeah, we will definitely keep everybody updated on what is happening.
Okay.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, can we add, beside having a spreadsheet, I really think that this should be documented with photographs if you can have them do it. We need a before and after, I think, for the community to see what's going on. Because when you're going to be later on trying to talk about fixing all the other buildings, we haven't had access into any of these buildings. I think the community is going to need to see some before and afters, because they have to have a better grip than just a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets don't mean much to the community, but a few photographs of everything before and after will make all the difference in the world.
That's a very good point, sir. And I will definitely make sure Mike has those pictures before and after.
Okay, and I have a comment here from Chris Fallon. If Chris, you're okay. If not, what is start date of ECP? I know it is usually a little later than the other schools with students in classrooms. Deborah, can you answer that?
Yep, I just put it in the chat. Our special needs children, which are all in the main building, start September 9th.
Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yes.
So that's the earliest. And are there
Right, but
other
Deborah-
students with later start dates?
Right, but Deborah, doesn't the regular classes start a week later?
The mainstream starts on the 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
Okay.
but Lee F. Jackson is set. All our special needs children are in the main building.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes,
hear you, Chris.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll stop typing. Okay, so thank you for that. So that gives us a little leeway as far as getting classrooms set up, I'm imagining, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I apologize if I repeat something Ashley may have asked. I had to run and get the headphones. The electrical systems testing, I didn't see that on the spreadsheet we were sent. So is that no longer an issue, or as far as once we plug in all of the fans and things are up and running, coffee makers in the different offices and possible ventilation machines, is there any issue with the electrical systems that needs to be addressed?
Jim?
As far as I know, if there were modifications that needed to be made, it would only be to handle the increase in size to the pumps for the boilers, but that wasn't going to involve a full electric service upgrade. If we were going to be doing more in-depth work, which is probably part of our phase 1 capital projects, then part of the work scope would be increasing capacity at that building or upgrading the panel itself, just because it can't handle any more circuits or load on the panel.
So we looked at the load, and if we have fans plugged in and everything running, the capacity is good right now, we're saying?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And the last thing is, I didn't see the air testing mentioned either. And I thought we said we wanted to make sure that the air quality would be tested before people were in the building. Is that not being scheduled or not being planned on? Anyone?
That is not well, it's not BBS directly, right? We do it ourselves. We pull in our own vendors,
Pull in
no?
BOCES.
Yeah.
So is that being booked and dates being put on the calendar and their time being
We can
scheduled
do
in?
that. Yes, definitely, definitely.
Because the EnviroScience guys came right out for the mansion, so.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
All right, so
All
check.
right. I think that's all I had for the ECP building. I'm assuming these exterior holes, exterior building all had to do with the pest control issue, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Tanya?
Yeah, so I just wanted to loop back to the spreadsheet. Is that something, Lisa, that's going to be like posted on our website so that people can just go and check like on a weekly basis? Like you're gonna say, okay, we're like updating this every Friday or something, or how exactly is that gonna work?
Well, I was going to update as we were having facility and finance committee meetings. I can do it weekly. It's fine. Whatever the committee decides.
Well, I'm just saying, because this is our, David, we can't have meetings during the summer, right? Or can we? So we can't, right? Because of the,
Well, they're changing back to having in-person meetings, right?
Yes, I saw
That's
that,
about to
yeah.
happen. And then we're going to have a new board, and then we're going to schedule some kind of summer retreat. I'm not sure who, and then we put people on the committees so that we see if we're still here, right? And the spreadsheet can keep running week after week because we have staff, right?
Right.
Right. So the rhythm can be by the week as opposed to by the meeting. We could have meetings in the summer if everybody really wants to come. Traditionally, everybody, once they can move around, they just get up and leave, and it's really hard to schedule meetings. But I'm here. We'll see about that.
okay, so I think Lisa, it sounds like it's a good idea for you and Mike Falcone to update these, like once a week, and you to post them and say, okay, the next update is coming next Friday or whatever. And, I mean, I like the idea of the pictures. It just means that someone really has to be responsible for going in there and taking pictures. So I don't know if that, sounds like that would fall probably on Mike because he's there.
Yep.
But he could do that, just post a few pictures to show progress. And yeah, so I guess that would be my recommendation. So
So you need a photo gallery and you need the spreadsheet. Okay.
And the spreadsheet, yeah, updated
Right.
like once a week. I mean, I don't think you guys have to like drive yourselves crazy like, on a daily basis, but like whatever, once a week would probably.
Yeah. Otherwise, you spend all your time reporting on the work and don't get much work done. So a weekly is probably a reasonable request. Okay. The most frequently asked question that I had was, what happens if the enrollment at Lee F. Jackson is such that they need some of the classrooms back that they have generously sort of loaned to ECP because everybody's back in building again? And possibly there might be more students. Now, I believe Lisa provided us with a listing of enrollment, and it looked relatively stable as of June 10th. What I have gotten back was, well, Lisa, would you like to describe to us the workaround in case we lose a couple of classrooms from Jackson?
Certainly. So we had an administrator meeting this week. So we discussed that what would happen if ECP opened and Highview, the 4 classrooms moved back to the ECP building, and the LFJ classes needed to increase by 1. Okay, so what are we going to do for LFJ? we're going to take 2 of the special ed classrooms, the 8112 classrooms, 2 of them, and we're going to move them to Highview to free up a room at LFJ so that those students could be serviced somewhere else and with the same student population. So right now, obviously it's not ideal because what happens if we get an influx of people or students, but right now that is the flow of what we are going to do, that we could keep LF Jackson open with the population, with the students that they need, but take those 2 special ed classrooms, move them to Highview, and at the same time, take the Highview ECP classes and move them back to the ECP building.
Okay, so then that means that the classrooms that are ECP classrooms that are already at LF Jackson, they just stay. There's no effect on those, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's the short-term resolution. If a giant wave of additional students comes in, then we'll deal with it. But at the moment, we have a solution. Ashley.
Thank you, David. Just one last thing to the earlier point. I think we should plan on having one more meeting probably in August to kind of be a bookend for all of these projects, probably towards the middle of August or maybe early August. Obviously, by then we will have established committee memberships on the board side, and then we can figure out who's on that committee, et cetera. But I think it would be a good idea to do that. Aside from the spreadsheets, I think that's a great idea. The other thing is going back to what someone mentioned, I forget the name, I apologize, to place these updates on our website along with the photos. I think that's a great idea just to keep the community informed over the summer. I think it'll help alleviate some of the concerns, see the progress being made. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? All right. So at this point, I think we should now take a look. I addressed what I thought were the 2 biggest hot button issues. So now we should take a look at all the projects across the board. And Mr. Lee, you might even be involved in some of these projects. So, so you feel free to speak up when we get to one of your tabs. Okay. Lisa, can you bring up your latest and greatest version of your spreadsheet?
No.
Okay,
Laser,
so
can
let
you
me
help
see.
me?
I can bring up, okay. I can bring up what you gave me yesterday, but I don't know how, if you've done something up to the latest minute. Okay, so
Nope, nope, yesterday is fine.
Okay, so
So-
let me work on my sharing screen.
Okay, so let me
And
talk
we'll,
while David is trying to do that. So we wanted to give everyone a spreadsheet that showed what we are in the process of doing, all right, with each building, each project, etc. And I wanted to show you what has been completed, what's in progress, what the actual cost was, and what the projected cost was, okay? And you can see at the bottom, there are tabs for everything. So the ECP costs, this is everything that was in BBS's proposal of what is going to be done to get us open. Okay, so this is what we really are working on. We're trying to maintain, we're trying to get it done so that we can open as of September 1. Actually, so that we can make things happen as of the mid-August, okay? And then as you go across the board with the tabs, you'll see what's happening with phase 1, with the high school vestibule, which Carlos has been instrumental in helping us with. He rewrote the proposal. We've submitted to SED. They have checked us off all of the checklists. It's in the queue to be approved for financing. We've talked with our representative, who is Ms. Sigrid Coons, and we are in the process, hopefully, to have that approved so that we can begin that process and that project. And then I've been talking
Wait,
with,
Carlos, do you have anything that you want to add there?
Yes, actually, yeah, Lisa, with your permission. So we not only submitted, there are two steps on this, and there is two areas at SED that deal with the Smart Schools Bond projects that are not educational technology. In our case, it's a high-tech security type of project. We submitted our plan, which is called the Smart Schools Investment Plan. It's a summary of what we wanted to do, why it was educationally sound for the students, security, protection, etc. That was submitted. Then they require from us and from the architects the actual design and all the materials that are going to be used and everything else that will be involved, getting any special permissions and everything. I'm happy to say that we got confirmation from BBS, and Jim can actually confirm on this, that they submitted those designs this week. So now we're on the waiting time for that review. There is an engineering review and there is an architectural review. I'm not sure, and maybe Jim can go in detail about that piece, but those are the only other contingent aspects of the approval of this. Now, we try basically applying for what is called a streamlined review, but because it's an addition, it doesn't qualify. So we still need to go through the architectural and engineering review. Now, there is no more as many applications as there were in the past because we're getting to the funding, the ending of this funding source at SED. So there is one reviewer at the Office of Educational Management, and there is also a reviewer in the facilities office at SED. So those two people are basically the ones handling all of this. So we got the contact information. We are on basically on an email contact basis. And our intention is to continue checking in every week, see if there is anything else that they need, what else needs to be provided from our architects or our leadership. And we will have this probably in the next 6 weeks with a determination. Now, remember, the governor is the one that determines the dates that the board that approves the Smart Schools Bond projects meets. So far, there is no date that hasn't been defined. It's the division of budget. But being on the queue and being on the table is what we want. We want to be there. So we will be there.
Okay, so now the question is, there's probably an administrative date by which they should have their piece done, and then we sit and wait for the governor's meeting to happen. So we should have on this spreadsheet a projected date by which we hope to get some kind of preliminary approval, if not from the governor, at least from the office. Is there a standardized turnaround time for that? Either Carlos or Jim?
The time frame that we got from the Office of Educational Management were 4 to 5 weeks. So we already submitted June 10. We're talking about the latest, probably the second week of July. Now, that's on that part, but that doesn't mean the other piece, the design that needs to be reviewed by the architects and also the engineering department. Jim, you want to go on that one?
Yeah, so what'll happen is SED can't start a review on any project until funding is in place, and that's kind of what was holding up getting plans submitted. We were waiting for this process to start as far as being in the queue with the request for the smart bond money. So once the money in 4 weeks is approved, let's say, as Carlos was mentioning, then the plans will be given over to the engineers to start their review and the architects for their review. So the money has to be approved, and then we'll get notification, or I'll notify Sigrid, who's the project manager for the school district, to say, hey, it looks like the funding's approved. We'll have some sort of letter, and then once we submit that, then they can start the review process.
Okay, so we need an item on this spreadsheet that says mid-July funding approval estimated, right? So that there's something to cue us if too much time has passed and it hasn't moved forward. So could we add an item to this for the future and what we're waiting on? Right. Okay. And then backing up to phase 1, would you like to go over that, Lisa?
Certainly. So phase one, it was approved by the voters. So it is now with Jim and Fred to do what they need to do to send it to SED so that we can get approval. It is estimated that once all of that is done, it's going to be a turnaround that won't be until next year that the project will be started.
Right, so we're
Correct.
in the planning process now of getting our design notes, field work done, environmental testing, all those things need to be done up front. And then, throughout the summer, we'll be doing the design documents and then make the submission to the state in the fall as we had, proposed, and then expect the drawings, approved sometime during the winter and get things out to bid in the spring, which would allow construction to start in June 2022.
So I remember you having this already nicely written out on a PowerPoint or a slideshow that you showed us, but I don't know if we ever got a copy of it. Could you provide those dates or get those dates copied into this spreadsheet? Because I know they're high level, that it's basically how many months, and the targets are like, summer of 2022, and just copy that in so that we know not only where we are now, but where we're going.
Right.
Certainly, I'll work with Jim to get that timeline.
Okay. Any questions on phase one? Yes, Chris.
And not now, but eventually, once the plans are submitted or even approved, I'd like to somehow add a detail section linking the specific items back to the BCS items, just so we can look at our BCS and say, this is on phase one, and check mark it's done.
Well,
okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
David, let me jump in there. Chris, this is a work in progress of what I've given the committee. I am still working on, David asked me to add tabs at the bottom that were the building condition survey per building. And I'm still working on that. I think I have 4 of the buildings on. I need to add 3 more. And what we were going to do is, here's what the architect said needs to be done. Here's what, and I will subtract from that what has been done so that it's like a running total. So everybody can see, here's what needs to be done. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. And here's what the total is. So yes, definitely. It'll be on there.
If you start with your 89 million at the top, and there's not really, of that 89 million total that the BCS calls for, oh, here's 5.1 million from phase one. Oh, here's the mansion roof. That takes some off of it as well. Oh, here's what we're doing short term with ECP. There's some overlap there, right? Each project that we've got going will bring that $89 million total down a little bit.
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to see the progress on that and have a gauge of how well we're doing in cutting into that. We need to see that we're getting ahead of the game.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And I understand it can't be done now because the complete project summary isn't prepared. So I don't expect to see the full-blown detail until the fall. If it's earlier, great, but I wouldn't have expected it sooner than that. What was the other thought? I'll come back to it. Okay.
I can't see everybody. Does anybody else have any questions before we move on to the next tab? Okay, I think we did high school vestibule already. We'll go to energy performance contract.
Okay, so Jim and I have been talking back and forth about the energy performance contract. They are getting together a RFP so that we can get it out. Jim's people have been working with the business office to get documentation on energy bills, etc., so that they can get a handle on what it is we have used. And we're in the process. They are, Jim, and correct me if I'm wrong, he and his people are in the process of putting the RFP together so that it can go out. so that we can get some bidders and we can move forward with that. I know that I don't have a cost in there. Jim and I have been speaking, and just recently we spoke, and it's a little more than from what we have spoken about in the past. We estimate that the project would probably be $5 million, a little more than $5 million.
Okay. Okay, so at this point, what's your future target date for getting that RFP out? And if it's as vague as fall of 2021, then that's what you put. But we need a target date by which we get that RFP out. How close can we come?
Right now, we're getting that final information from the district. I think once we've gotten that, really it's a request, a letter that gets submitted to the energy service providers that they will be able to obtain information as needed. And once we have that letter crafted, then it'll be incorporated into the RFP. And I think we're targeting July 1st, so like the first week in July to have the RFP ready to go out.
Okay, so can we put a date of July with that target on this spreadsheet?
Most definitely. Yep.
RFP.
And the cost column is really gonna vary because it's ultimately going to come down to what the ECP comes back with and says, for this much money, we're going to do these things. So it might not match up 5 million. It might be more like 7 or 8 million.
Right.
So be conservative, put 5.
Yeah, that's our number.
Make
So
it a very round number so that we know our level of specificity is not very great.
Well, we know
But
we
it's
have.
better than a blank. Yeah.
Got it.
Or even a range.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions on the energy performance contract? Yes, Ashley.
So if we're planning to put this out somewhere in July 1st, do we typically do like a month for that RFP to come back? Like what's our window to close it down and receive submissions and all that?
So I think that takes probably 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the complexity of the school district and how many buildings are involved. I'm not quite sure how long this one's going to be let for, but I wouldn't expect it any more than 6 weeks. And then there's a process once they come back that we need to take them all in, review them, compare the proposals that were submitted, make sure that what they're all submitting is, number one, what was requested. Number two, everything that if they're adding to the pot, if it's necessary or just for the sake of adding work, those sort of things need time to be reviewed. But we would say getting the proposals back would be in about 6 weeks.
So can we put all those rough timelines to David's point on the spreadsheets just so we can track to something? And if we need to adjust them, we'll adjust them, but at least get something down.
Yep, most definitely.
So that's what, September review submissions or
right.
Or complete review submissions. Okay. Anything else on the energy performance contract? Okay. Mansion roof.
So we got SED approval to do the mansion roof, and everything has been submitted. But here is our big but. The funding. So we have the money in the repair reserve. The thing that I have to cover with the attorney is I don't believe that everything that has to be done for the mansion roof is considered a repair. All right, so that is a huge issue. As you know, that we did with phase 1 and the way we broke up the money. So, David, I don't know if you want to lead into the capital reserve portion or whatever, but here's what has to happen. A repair reserve is great. It is a great avenue to have for repairs. And the law says specifically for repairs. What has to be done to the mansion roof is not only repairs, it is replacement. We can't use any of that money for replacement. So what that means is that we should, as a district, establish a capital reserve, which has to be done by the taxpayers. So the taxpayers would approve a referendum to establish a capital reserve. They would approve to fund the capital reserve, and it can be year by year, it could be multiple years. The referendum or the proposition could say, we approve that you put $10 million into a capital reserve over the next 5 years for any available monies that are there. Okay. And then the taxpayers have to approve to use that money for specific projects. Okay. Usually that is done during the budget process because you couple it with your budget proposition and anything else. But it doesn't have to be. You could do it or you could hold it separately. Right now, I don't think what needs to be done for the mansion roof would qualify as repairs, and we couldn't pull the money out right now to do it. We could do part of it, we couldn't do all of it. So that's a huge issue right now.
What part could we do?
I don't know. I'm not positive on that. I'd have to speak with our attorneys. I'd have to speak with the architects.
Jim, do we know?
I'll say that again. What?
Do we know what part of the repair reserve we can't use on mansion repairs? So there's things qualify, some things don't qualify. I don't know.
I would say the masonry repairs would probably qualify only because we're not really physically removing any of that masonry. We're just touching up joints and replacing cracked brick. But I guess to what Lisa's mentioning, that when you look at the letter, the way it's written in the law, as far as the repair for a roof, I guess if we were addressing one specific section, but leaving the majority of the original roof intact, that would qualify under repair. Where
I've known people who've taken roofing projects and split them over to multiple years so that it always qualifies as a repair instead of a replacement. So,
right. In this case, because the type of roof it is and its complexity, it really doesn't work that way. We don't have levels that aren't really touching, some areas, I guess some flat roof areas could be broken out without affecting the slate roofs and just do those perhaps. But I don't know. Again, they're pretty large areas when you look at it.
Okay, this is a serious issue. So especially if it requires us to go through another budget vote cycle in order to correct it. Am I hearing that we have to do something similar to what we did this year again in order to get this unstuck?
Well, you don't have to wait for the budget cycle, David. You could hold a vote over the summer if you wanted to. We just have to go through the process and the procedures of the advertising, notifying the public, etc. It just involves another vote to ask the taxpayers to establish the reserve, to fund the reserve, and then to how are we going to use the money from the reserve, and if they agree to use it for X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so this is something at the level we've got. Obviously, we have to bring this back to the board, and obviously, the new superintendent needs to see what's what before we can move any further on that. Carol Ellen, you have your hand up?
I think we should recommend to the board that we proceed to have the special meeting of the voters to approve this project as quickly as possible. We've been talking about this for way too long. It needs to happen as quickly as possible.
Okay. Chris?
I found my answer. This is because, just to remind myself, because the money we had set aside in an unofficial earmarked for capital projects fund, which was never officially set up as a capital reserve fund.
Mhm.
We moved those into an
phase
official
one.
fund, to repair reserve fund. And so the fund we're talking about creating now, is it a capital project fund as opposed to a repair reserve fund?
No, what we are trying to create is a capital reserve fund.
Okay.
That is a specific fund, that is voted in by the taxpayers, voted out by the taxpayers, okay? That is different from a repair reserve. So repair reserve was set up by the district for repairs, and that's the specific word, repairs. It can only be used for repairs. It can't be used to recreate, to replace, whatever. That is not what qualifies as a repair. All right, so.
And that's where we have all our money now, correct? In that official repair reserve fund.
Correct, because we used all of the funds that were available for phase one.
Right. So if we create a capital reserve fund, what are the limitations on the use of those funds once that fund is created and funded?
Okay, there are no limitations. The only limitation is, here's what would happen, Chris, and here's the way that I would see it. We would ask the taxpayers in a proposition to create a capital reserve. They say yes. Then we say to them, let us put over the next, and I'm just giving an example because it can be changed according to the school district. Let me put $10 million in the capital reserve over 5 years from money that is left over in the budget. Okay, and you could not. Okay, then when you want to use that money, you would have to do a proposition to the taxpayers that says, hey, you let me accumulate $10 million. I now want to take that money out and I want to do X, Y, and Z to these buildings. All right, at no cost to the taxpayers because the money is already there. A capital reserve is dictated, for lack of a better word, by the taxpayers putting money in and taking money out.
So let me ask you a question. It sounds like if we do go the capital reserve route, it's going to take 2 votes instead of 1. So 1 vote establishes the fund, then we populate the fund, then a second public vote takes the money out for a specific project. If we want to move faster, could we go straight to a capital project, which is specified for this particular thing, in this case, the mansion roof, and get it done in 1 vote?
Okay, so you're right and you're not right in that example, because here's what I think that our attorneys would have to help us with. Proposition 1, establish the capital reserve. Proposition 2, let's fund the capital reserve. Now, how are we going to do that? Okay, we're either going to do that by excess money that is left over, and or the way you can fund a capital reserve is by money in left over in a budget, or you can put money in there from the tax tertiary reserve or the repair reserve. So you could say, public, can we establish a capital reserve? Yes. Proposition 2, if you say yes, can I transfer X number of dollars from the repair reserve or excess fund balance or excess tax tertiary reserve to the capital reserve? Yes. And then you have this money that is sitting in there. So it doesn't have to be a multi-year, multi-proposition, multi-whatever year process. You could do it all in one. It's just how you're going to explain it to the public.
Okay, so step 1, you create the fund, or proposition 1, you create the fund. Proposition 2, you populate the fund. Proposition 3, you expend the funds for a specific project, all in the same vote?
Exactly.
You could, as long as you can explain it properly to the taxpayers, so that they're not confused, and that they obviously they're not going to vote it down.
Okay. Tanya.
Okay, so I'm really confused now. We are talking about the mansion roof. I thought we already had the voters approve all of this. I thought it was all done and we just had to do the work. So why are we now going back to the beginning of this?
Okay, so you did have the voter approval to do this,
right?
But it was put in the repair reserve. A repair reserve is there for just repairs. This
see.
qualify as repairs.
It's more than half the roof.
Okay, and we didn't know that at the time. We thought that it was a repair, but now it turns out it's not a repair.
I'm not sure. I wasn't here during that time, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, I don't
Okay, so why is it that a roof replacement is not considered a repair to a building?
It's not a repair. You're actually replacing it, you're improving it. It doesn't, under the law, it doesn't qualify as a repair, as, you know, patch this, patch here. Yeah.
Oh my
God. Yeah. Okay, so there's a problem and we have to get out from under it. I think Ashley and then Katie. Okay.
I think Katie had her hand up first. So she can
Okay, go
and
ahead,
then I'll go.
Katie. We're not hearing you. Yeah, play with it. Hello?
Oh,
There you go.
how about now?
Great, we can hear you.
Okay. Apparently I need the headphones. Yeah, so can you remind me though, what did we do in May? Because I think it was May. I remember being the only one to speak at a hearing, and I thought it was to take money out of the repair reserve. Like there was a whole thing, like it seemed like you had consulted with the attorneys, and was that for something different, phase 1 or something, and not
Right.
this roof?
So what we
Okay.
did, here's what we did. So there was money in the repair reserve, and we couldn't use all of it for the phase 1 project. We took what we could for repairs and applied it to repairs. And then what we did was we took the rest of the money and we applied it to phase 1, and we kind of swapped the monies and put it in the repair reserve and the capital fund. So the money is there. It's just, it's not that it's not there. It's just we can't use it for what we want to because of the avenue of where it is.
But how much money is left? So when you took some out for phase 1, how much was left? You're saying you swapped? You at the same time
Yeah,
you
so
put
there
some
is
back in?
right now in the capital reserve, there's just under 1.3 million.
Capital reserve.
No, we
You
don't
said-
have a capital reserve
Oh,
because
so you
the
just
board
said-
hasn't established that yet. It's in the
Okay, in
repair
the
reserve.
repair reserve.
Correct.
1.3.
And that's what the problem is it's not in the proper reserve in order to use it.
And I see Dave is asking, can't we just fund directly from the capital fund line in the budget?
No,
That
nope,
doesn't.
nope, nope, we can't
We
because,
told people what's in it.
exactly, exactly. Yep, yep. The taxpayers have to know where you are using this money and what you're using it for.
And is that for any sized capital project or
Oh,
like a
yes,
certain money
yes,
amount?
yes, 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 yes.
And is it true then? Does it follow that this district hasn't done a capital project in so long
Oh,
that
yeah,
we haven't done it? I mean, I've been here at least as a parent for like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, no,
I've never had to go vote, right?
No, you're exactly right. This district has not done a capital project. And if the capital projects have been done, it's been funded through the budget process, which is called a capital outlay. I know it can get really confusing. But as far as a capital project, no, this district has not done one in multiple years.
The last thing that I worked on that actually got any traction was Excel Aid. And that required voter approval, but the funding came from the state instead of from our local budget. And many people even voted against it then, even though there was no expenditure. So things have gotten a little bit better since those days. But for a long time, yeah, we couldn't get anything passed. So we're working on it. We're trying to dig our way out of this hole.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, and I'm gonna let someone else speak, is that there is a way forward as long as we put this to a vote.
Yes.
Correct.
And
There
that's
is a
what-
way, there is
that's what
definitely,
Carol was pushing for, right.
yeah, Katie, there definitely is a way out of this. We just have to do it in the proper fashion, and just may take a little bit longer, but we can do it and move forward.
Ashley.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. So Lisa, two questions. One, typically when we do this as part of the budget cycle, there's no additional cost, right? Because we're already dealing with the machines and all the other stuff that comes along with that. So obviously there's a cost to this. I think we should put together a cost estimate as to what it's going to cost us to do this sooner rather than later outside of the budget cycle, just so we have that as information, because at the end of the day, we're paying for this, right? The second thing is, we should also consider what is the most aggressive timeline we can get to actually pull this all off. Let's put something together that's realistic, taking into account that, you know, things have a habit of drifting sometimes. It might be a month, it might be 2 months. You guys can put it together, and then that way we have some estimates as to how long it will take us to move this along and try to push it forward. Thank you.
Ivy is invaluable in telling you how long it takes to get a vote together. Carol?
I would like to suggest that our subcommittee makes a recommendation to the board immediately that they start the process of scheduling a referendum for voter approval to establish the capital reserve.
Okay, and is that just to establish the capital reserve or to do the entire process?
I would think we would do the entire process, but the first step is to establish the capital reserve. Once you make the decision that you're going to do that, we can certainly add step 2 and step 3 to that process, but we need to get the process started. And the first step is making the commitment to get the capital reserve established.
To establish capital reserve and provide additional resolutions to transfer funds to our approved project. Now, let me ask you, once you establish that capital reserve fund, you can have a larger scope of the capital reserve fund and money can flow into it over time when you make that first proposition. And then your other propositions that say, let's move some money from the repair reserve fund in here, which it can be a smaller subset, right? And then let's expend this portion that we just put in with the from the repair reserve for this project. So that's 1, 2, 3 propositions.
Correct. So what you have to do is the reserve has to be established by the taxpayers. Then you have to say to the taxpayers, let me put X number of million of dollars in there over this number of years. And they have to approve that. And then when you want to use the money, you have to ask the taxpayers. So let's say you put $10 million in over 5 years. 5 years is 2026. If you haven't proposed a project to the taxpayers by 2026, that money is now null and void that is in there. and it has to go back to the general fund. So it is very strict. It is very specific on, hey, I'm asking the taxpayers to let me establish a fund, put money in the fund to use for projects or capital to defer costs. I don't want to take a bond for the school. Or, hey, if we take a $90 million bond, 10 million of it is going to come from the capital reserve, so it doesn't go to our taxpayers. It's very specific. It's not that, you can just hoard money. It's not what a capital reserve is for, because if you don't use the money or earmark the money in the time frame that you asked the taxpayers for, then it's gone. It has to go back to the taxpayers. So it's very specific on what you can use it for, what you do with it, etc. So.
Okay, so we have a recommendation that the Board of Education hold a special vote to establish the capital reserve, populate the reserve with funding from the repair reserve, and expend the reserve on the already approved mansion roof project.
Could I add one more thing, please? Because
Sure.
Ashley suggested that we prepare a cost estimate on doing the special election. I'd like to point out that turnout would be very low for such a special election, and we should therefore adjust the staffing for that election appropriately, and that would save a lot of money if we don't have 15 workers there to process the maybe 300 or 400 people that are going to show up to vote.
Okay, so when we bring this recommendation to the board, we need to have a cost estimate in front of them so that, well, in front of ourselves, so that we
Okay.
can make a proper decision. So can we put that together?
Yes, definitely. I'll work with
Great.
Ivy.
So let me ask you, for all of those who can, is there anyone here who's opposed to this? That's been put out. All those in favor?
Agreed.
Aye.
Aye. Yes,
Aye.
very much so, yes.
Opposed?
Agreed.
Aye.
All right, hearing, it sounds like it's unanimous.
Can I,
Very good, thank you. Chris?
I have a few follow-ups. What Lisa was just saying about if the money is not used within 5 years, it has to go back. When we say used, do you mean dispersed, project complete, all invoices paid, or
No,
can
no,
a
no, no,
project
no.
still be in process and approval sought, et cetera?
Exactly. As long as the money is earmarked so that you say to the public, hey, I have $10 million in the capital reserve. Please let me use it to repair LFJ. Okay. And they say yes, that you're done. You're over and done with that. Okay.
Okay.
It's money that is left over that you haven't earmarked. It doesn't matter when it's dispersed. We've already said, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z at this school building. You've already approved it to us. We can't control the economy or the contractors, but we're going to spend this. We're going to make these improvements. It's the money that we let sit in there and just say, yeah, we're just going to accrue interest on this. Yeah. No, that's not what they want to do, because that affects the taxpayer and their tax bill.
Okay. And then looking ahead to what we need to start discussing in the fall and phase 2, can we start identifying what items are repair and what items are replacement / capital projects, so we know
Yes,
how much
yes,
money we need for
we
both?
definitely can.
We'll
And
have both channels available to us, but we need to designate, you're right.
right, so the spreadsheet that I provided to David to give to you does not include the building condition survey by building, which I am working on. Like I said, I have 3 or 4 of the buildings done. I am giving you, as a committee, what the building condition survey identifies that needs to be done. What have Mike and I discussed that is in his budget that we can do, and that way we can subtract it from the building condition survey, and or, hey, here, board or committee, we need to do this. For example, I'm going to tell you that we were written up by our insurance company for the curbs and sidewalks of 3 of our buildings, that we have to improve them. So I said to Mike, why are we going to like patch this, patch that? Let's just do it. What is the cost to improve or correct this issue? And he's getting me the information, because we don't need any lawsuits. We need to provide a safe environment for our staff, our students, and parents, and our visitors. And we're going to do that, just that. So it involves probably taking up, well, at LF Jackson, it's going to involve taking up some of the curbs and the sidewalk, and at RJB and the high school, it's just going to be an improvement. But we have to do what we have to do. You know, we don't need lawsuits. We don't need people getting hurt. So it's those kind of things that, aside from what I'm showing you, Mike and I are working on in the background.
Dave, you had some comments, I think.
I've got one more.
Oh, you got one more? All right, go ahead, finish.
Sorry. So speaking of the curbs and sidewalks, I did take a look at the BCS, and of course it said satisfactory at all the buildings, but I do agree, if the insurance company is citing this as a problem, that we need to make sure we're covered for liability. I was a little surprised that the costs in the BCS were different than what was estimated, but it just could be what areas you were looking at. The actual other item was, I took a quick look at one of the budget drafts just for the district meeting costs, and I know you're going to confirm this later, but you're talking between $10,000 and $20,000, it looks like, if I'm reading this correctly. Thank you.
Okay, Dave.
Hi, I was just going back to the establishment of the capital reserve fund. Can we do all 3 steps in a nested proposal, or that's the plan, right?
No, I don't know that you can do it in one proposal, but you're correct that we could do it in one vote. It would just have to be 3 propositions. We don't want to make the taxpayers confused. We want them to understand, please help us establish the reserve, help us fund the reserve, and help us expend the reserve.
Okay.
Okay. Chris, you still have your hand up? No, okay. All right, other questions? Shall we go back now to the main spreadsheet? See what I can do here.
So I created this spreadsheet for each project that we have that is ongoing that people might ask for. Okay. I will update this. I will update this for myself, but I will update it for the committee, so that each time we meet, you will know what the progress is, what the estimated cost is, and what the actual cost is, and what the comments are. Where are we at? Why hasn't this happened yet? Obviously, there are some things that are beyond Mr. Falcone's control. And I got to tell you, the man is on it. He really is on top of everything. And we are trying to get everything done. Thank you, David, for I added 2 or 3 more columns, because what I think is common might not be common to all of you. We are having a problem. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We're having a problem with the Morton House and the demolition there, because Con Edison is keeps saying that they need an official signature, they need an official this. And finally, I had to give them my signature notarized by a notary, which I did, I provided 2 weeks ago. And hopefully that'll be enough so that they can come and disconnect the electric so that our contractor
Go
can
ahead.
demolish the house.
Okay, so that's what that is. Playgrounds, did we do the playgrounds tab first?
Okay, so the playgrounds, Highview and LFJ is done. RJ Bailey, they are going to begin probably next week. They are in the process of doing a playground in our area, somewhere in Greenburgh, and they will be with us. But the other two are done and are being used.
Good. Any questions on that? Carol Allen, you have your hand up. Carol? I don't know if she's speaking or not. I've got a black screen and.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, there are two columns on the spreadsheet. One is actual and the other is estimated cost. It would be useful once you have the actual cost, if you leave the estimated cost in that column so that we can see if we came in on budget or if they were cost overruns.
Okay, yep, you got it. I can put that in there.
Thank you.
And I think, Dave, you had your hand up?
Carol read my mind.
Okay, good. All right, then you were talking about curbs already.
Yep.
See, just to show it. Programming and sidewalks. I remember Steve Morton had a curb cut that he wanted done at Woodlands for eons to make things safer. Is this something that could be folded into this?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, there.
Can we have, I've talked to Mike about that. Driving through the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've had some, I really think we need a good walkthrough on those curbs. I don't know if Mike understands how dangerous these things are. Even today, I almost got hit. This has been 8 years of me telling this and it never gets worked on. So I don't care if I have to walk through it. We had an accident a month and a half ago. I got Mike Falcone to go over and cut some hedges. There are a lot of places that need to be worked on, not just for making it look pretty. They're dangerous. And I even saw a bus almost hit a car the other day. And something's gonna happen. I'm gonna be on record to say something's gonna happen if they don't do a full assessment of all the curbs.
Okay, so we need to add that item. I think you provided that information to us in the past already. Am I correct? You even provided us with a photo. Do you have that, or should I go look that up and pull it and give it to Mike again?
I can get some more photos because there's actually some more issues with the front gate over there on the High Point side of town, which actually looks bad anyway. But that gate sometimes is sitting in the middle of the roadway and the buses almost hit it with kids in there. There's a lot of stuff that's being left out of the whole facilities. So I'll be glad to go take some more pictures.
Take some pictures and send them to us so that we can all see them and we will all converge on it. Okay. And so we'll see how that turns out. Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I don't know if Steve's talking about the same accident I know about. So I know we identified the curb cuts at the lots a year or so ago. I think we also need a curb cut going back towards the gymnasium. 2 cars or a car and a bus cannot go through at the same time. So just cutting into the right, on the right side, when you're making that little curve back towards the gymnasium. Steve, I'm available for pictures too, if you want me to go with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carol?
I made my comments before.
Okay, Ashley?
Just along with those pictures, can you guys also provide a little context as to the logic for each one of those? That way, as things get translated from one person to the next, we don't lose the actual original intent and we'll move it along, hopefully. Thank you.
Caption for each with context. Okay. Okay, very good. Other comments? Okay, we're moving on to the high school tab.
Okay, so these are the things, I've included a tab for each school and what Mike and his staff have been working on. So prior to COVID, the auditorium floor had to be redone. And to paint or remove the seats, it was very, very expensive. So what we did was we removed the carpet in the aisles and the back and the front of the auditorium. And he and his staff painted the seats instead of removing them all. That was already done. And we, because of COVID, it didn't happen that the carpeting was replaced. We have that in progress. The other thing is that we have had quite a bit of damage, water, whatever, in the gymnasium, and that floor is in need of major repair.
Is this
And
the large
Mike,
gym or the small gym?
the large gym,
Okay.
where the vote was. And that will cost us almost $225,000 to replace it and to fix what is there. So that is the cost of, just to put it out there. And then it has been a comment that the life skills class for our special ed students needed to be updated, and Mike is working with Jill Post through a grant to find out what we can do in 3 classrooms to improve that floor, but she hasn't had any response yet. So I listed it here just so you know, so that we could include that in the future.
Are there any issues with the actual appliances themselves, the stoves and the sinks, all that stuff? I remember, using, I think, a WISE project. We used one of the stoves. Everything looked like it was from about the 1970s, but it seemed to still be functional. Do we have an
Yes.
issue there?
No, we don't, because we have been upgrading those.
Okay. Tanya.
So Lisa, you mentioned that the gym was flooded. When did this happen?
I'm not sure exactly when it happened. I don't know when the gym floor was damaged. It obviously, because I can't remember that it happened in my time, but it has been done, and I guess it needs to be replaced. I'd have to look into that for you, but I don't know.
And what's
Okay,
our
so
funding? Yeah.
okay,
That
and
doesn't look like shit. That's not inexpensive. Okay.
right. So I guess my other question is that on us, or do we have some kind of insurance for that, or how is that? That's a hefty bill. I'm just wondering.
Well, I would think that that would be on us. And I would only say that because in my time, I haven't reported anything to the insurance company. So I'm not positive. I'd have to talk to Mike. I don't know why this is happening or what has happened in order to report it to the insurance company to be partially funded.
Okay, and so now that we're speaking of flooding, I also remember that there's flooding in the mansion, so I don't want to get us off topic, but that
Okay,
too is,
so
We have pictures of that. We'll get to that
yeah.
soon.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so I think Carol.
Along the same line, we really need to know what caused the flooding to see if that needs to be fixed before we repair or replace the floor in the gym.
correct.
Ashley.
Okay. I don't want to take us off topic, but just Lisa, since you added the gymnasium floor, at some point in the future on our radar, we need to seriously look at the facilities in terms of the outdoor facilities for the students, like the tennis courts and all those other things that we've been talking about for years that are in disrepair. Obviously, funding is a challenge there, but maybe we want to see if there's any private grants we could get, some kind of private-public partnership on the sidelines at the same time, get that going to see if anyone is out there willing to help us with that. I could see maybe someone willing to do that.
Okay. Chris.
Thank you.
Sorry to talk on every topic, but I have the same concerns as Tanya and Carol, concerns or questions about the gym floor. So two things, again, referring back to the BCS, when they did an evaluation of the gym floors and all the buildings, it was marked as satisfactory. And if this isn't recent damage, I would just want to have the assurance that there's an actual need to do this right now. And I'd also like to know if it's getting done now, is this money coming out of the current budget, or is this something else we need to fold into a repair, get out of the repair reserve that wasn't initially planned for?
Correct. Okay. So we have many questions, and so we need to take those questions back. And I think Mike Falcone is most likely to have the answers.
Okay.
And right. So we've got to get back to him, and we will seek more information.
Yeah. And to Ashley's point about the tennis courts, I did a little research. The USTA does, I think, give free advice about design. I don't think they'll fund a tennis court for us, but the USTA could be a contact, because they will give some engineering and design advice, possibly for free. Thank you.
Okay. And any other questions or comments on this? Okay. Moving on to Bailey.
So there was an issue at Bailey prior to me that there was asbestos in 2 of the classrooms, which Mike Falcone addressed, and now we want to begin replacing the floors, and we need to replace the floor in another classroom, and that is what those estimated costs are. The gym floor, just like the one at the high school, that one needs to be addressed. It's old. It needs to be done, and he is waiting for a cost on how much that would be.
Okay. Comments? Let's move on to Jackson.
Okay, so at Jackson, the hallway tiles need to be replaced. They're coming up. They're being removed by wear and tear. They're old, but unfortunately they are back into the 1970s, and there is asbestos. So Mike had someone come in to do the research on that, probably BOCES. And yes, they are asbestos tiles. In order to remove them, we have to do an asbestos rebatement first. And that would cost approximately $70,000. And then to retile all of that area would be $80,000. So that is an issue. It is something that probably could be rolled into a capital reserve project, because it is an issue and we keep getting written up on that.
What traditionally has happened is each year, Mike Falcone would look at whatever money he had left in his facilities budget, and he would target a classroom or a hallway, something in each building that contained asbestos, and do a summer asbestos removal project. So I think the thing we saw a moment ago may have been he got to a point where he'd actually removed some asbestos tile from a room, and then we had to shift all our budget over to doing ventilation, And so he just painted the floors in a couple of spots. And so there's some retiling that's happening as a result of that. And so the tradition has continued, I assume, that he's gradually getting rid of all the asbestos in the buildings. And if something starts to become friable, then he accelerates that process.
Correct. He's trying. He's giving his a valiant effort, but this is something that if it was done, it needs to be done in its entirety.
Okay. Questions or comments on that? Okay. Tennis courts. I believe we already talked about tennis courts. We need numbers. Okay.
Yep. So we have something from 2003. We have a cost for replacement, repair, etc. I asked Mike to please contact that architect again to get an updated cost, and he is going to meet with them and we will get a cost for that.
You know when?
Well, I talked to him the beginning of this week and they were trying to coordinate a date. So, excuse me, I have the hiccups. I'm thinking that it's going to be by the end of June.
Okay, we'll say July. So put a date on it. Okay. Bus garage boiler.
All right, so the bus garage boiler, we have been band-aiding, to say the least, and it needs to be replaced. It needs to be removed, and this is the cost. It's something that has to be done, and we're hoping, we were trying to get it done this school year, but something else came along and we had to do that. But this is something that has to be a priority for us because we're not going to, Mike's not going to, the contract or whatever, they're not going to be able to keep band-aiding it or fixing it.
Okay. And I think that is in our BCS already. Okay. Wait.
Okay, so this is another item that I added. I forgot about this, the wheelchair ramp. I'm not sure that it's going to come in at 200,000. I have to talk to Jim and Fred. But this is the estimate that was given to me.
How old is the estimate?
It's old. It's old. It's prior to me. I just want it updated, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Okay. Jim, are you aware of that?
Yeah, it's the number that we were asked to provide. Hey, what can you give us a ballpark estimate on what a ramp would cost? And we knew the location where it was going to be. There's been no engineering or real design put into it. We were asked on the spot to come up with a number, and we just kind of based it on the linear footage and an idea of what the cost of concrete and steel were at the time. This estimate is doesn't reflect any real design, let's say. So
okay, so if I remember correctly, is there a link between our upgrading, installing the security vestibule and completing this project? Are those somehow, do they have to go together?
No, in the case where there is current handicap access to the building, so it isn't directly linked, but this would provide one point of access for everybody, those in a wheelchair, because currently people in a wheelchair can't get into your building this way now anyway. So it's not like it's going to change anything. It just
the alternative exit around on the side.
Right. So there would be a screening process that should be set up, to ensure the security of a person coming in, but in no way is it required to be done here.
Okay, Carol?
The public is going to want to know why a wheelchair ramp is going to cost $200,000 to install. So we really need to be prepared to answer that question in detail to justify this extremely large expense.
That ramp isn't just what you would think at a 12-inch rise. This thing is, that stairs going down into that area way. That ramp is going to be about 75 to 80 feet long. and it's going to require a lot of concrete and a lot of railing and everything else. So be prepared that this estimate could be more than $200,000 once we see, detailed drawings and, real cost on taking out the retaining wall that's in place where it needs to go. It's not just building a ramp that gets you from, an elevation of 1 foot to 2 feet. This is a huge, event to be done in terms of construction and demolition and, complexity of where it's located. It's going to be, quite a, thing to do, and it'll be useful to the building, which is nice, but I agree. Everyone needs to know the cost and why it would be so much.
If it's that big a deal, perhaps we need to look at a different way of getting wheelchair access to the building. With the other problems that we have with our buildings and grounds, it's extremely hard to justify why we would spend $200,000 for wheelchair access.
I would think that if we wanted to spend money on wheelchair access, well, assuming we get the admin building back open, and we start using the boardroom and all that again, I think we didn't have wheelchair access to the entire building there. And so I might, if you've got a public meeting room, you need to be able to get to it. So I think that might be something we might want to look at a little further before we commit to this.
Right.
Okay. This is a question mark. Any other comments? Okay. Morton House, I believe we've already discussed. Let's see. Demolition begin once electricity gets disconnected, and they're sitting there with no date because you don't know how long it's going to take them to. They should have done it already. Have they given you a turnaround time? Did they smile and say, "Good, you've given us our piece of paper we needed. We will go forward," or no?
Nope.
It's we'll get back to you. Okay.
Exactly.
And the BCS tab is a blank. All right, so this is what you're working on, right? The
Yes.
fraction problem, right?
Yes.
So the idea is to go building by building and figure out what's coming out of the BCS from all these projects we got in place. Start and then have a total column to the right, $89 million, and bring it down. And then when we post this thing up on the website, we can show progress relative to what our BCS total is and what we're doing. And
Correct.
we need to see that before we can opine on it. Yes, Chris.
Okay, so we've discussed identifying all of our future projects, what could be repair reserve, what can be capital / replacement funding.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that I believe some of our phase 1 items, which are planned to come out of repair reserve, might now qualify for the part of the federal COVID funds for all of our ventilation items. So hopefully we can identify that third source.
The rest of the American Rescue total of $2 million, and 400,000 had to go to instructional. Right. And I assume that you have a couple of years to spend it, and primarily we'll look for long-lasting investments that will help to improve our children on an instructional basis. And then some proportion of that could be dedicated to things like ventilation.
Right. And since a number of our phase 1 items are ventilation issues, I'm hoping, since this is just a one-time shot of funds that could be allocated to these items, that might, I don't know how that works with what we declared for our repair reserve fund use.
What had initially occurred to me was, oh, look, we've got all these boxes in RJ Bailey, and that's a $3 million item. You could take a chunk out of it. You take 10% out of it or something, and then reallocate that money for some other repair. But the question in my mind is, there's also, I believe they've come up with more requirements than there used to be. I think they came back and said there are equity requirements. Not only do you have to make sure that the school districts don't have their cost per student changed on a district by district level because you took other money away when we brought this aid in, but also within the individual lead educational agency, I think you have to say, you can't give money to the rich school on this side of town and not money to the poor school on the other side of town, and you have to allocate it in a fair fashion. And I don't know what that does to our ability to allocate that money. Lisa, have you looked at that yet? I know the guidance just came out in the middle of June.
No, nope, they haven't released anything yet.
And I know that there are requirements for two kinds of plans. One is like the reopening plan. We have one, we can update it, but it exists. And the other is the, how are you going to spend this money plan? And so I assume the administration as a whole needs to come back with a big, how are you going to spend this money plan? And then we get a little chunk of it. That's what I'm thinking. Anybody else have any? Oh, Chris, you have your hand up?
No, I wanted to start that conversation because I think it's something we need to look at over the next few months before we start dispersing monies from different funding streams. In case
Yeah, you can't disperse the money without the plan. Ashley.
Along the same lines, can we make it a recommendation of this committee that we see a plan presented to us by the administration, maybe for that August meeting, to give them about 2 months, and hopefully by then we'll have some more guidance from the states and clarifications, but at least we can start getting a plan together, because we know these projects take forever and a day to complete. So
this is a request. All right. Recommend. So we are recommending administration draft plan, or we can make a request of that. Okay. It's like Recovery and Reinvestment Act. All right.
Yeah, for that August meeting if possible, so that we can move forward.
Act for August, question mark. Okay. I'd like to hear a couple of other people. Do other people agree with this? I'm kind of leaning in that way. I don't know if August is realistic. I want the administration to come back and tell me if it's realistic or not. Lisa,
I mean,
is that realistic, or do we have to wait?
Nope, that's good. That's good.
August is good. Okay. All those in favor of this being a recommendation?
I just have a question. Is there going to be like some kind of is there a deadline for these sorts of requests, or, I mean, or is it kind of on a rolling basis until?
Well, there is a
they print more
deadline.
dollars?
Nope, you're right. There is a deadline that I have to give a tentative plan by the end of this month, but it goes to June of 2023.
Okay.
Okay. And is there a requirement that something be posted on the website so that people can see the plan and have public feedback on the plan itself?
Yes, there is. And we will have to post something on our website, kind of like the reopening plan for after COVID. We can use that. And Dr. Reynolds and I are meeting within this week to try to come up with a plan, because if you remember, 20% of it has to go to social emotional learning of our students. And that involves after school, extended day, summer school, etc. And he's working on that. So we're going to meet
and make up the instructional loss, right?
Correct. Yep.
That's yes. Okay. And that is on the NYSED website if you want to go look for it.
Correct.
It's there's a lot of documentation now if you want to swim through that. All right. Other questions or comments on that? All right. All right. So the request is, should the committee recommend that that we see a plan? All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Absolutely.
Aye.
Opposed?
I said aye.
Aye. Okay, we're good. So so we got 2 recommendations adopted. Okay. Good. Let's see, I believe that takes care of the spreadsheet. That was the main goal, was to get through this spreadsheet today. And it's now 8:11. So we're looking at time here. Okay. Administration building plumbing emergency. We had a couple of pictures of that. Let me see if I can if I could pull that up, let's see. Just going to, it's going to step me back through every tab. Let's see if I can.
So while David is looking for that, on Monday, we got a call that there was a break in the water pipes at the mansion. And because they're old, nothing was precipitated. It's just because they're old, they're rusted, and they broke over the weekend. And nobody was there to review this. And by the time Monday came, it came through the ceiling, came through 2 of the ECP classrooms, and went into the room where the pool is. So it was our understanding that the pool was filled in. From what I understand, it was not. It was boarded over. So when we had the contractor come in to evaluate, when we had the asbestos people come in to evaluate, and they put their instrument through the floor, cut a hole in the floor, it went straight through the floor. It went straight through the plyboard and right into the pool. So we now have a completely full pool, for lack of a better word, that is not operational. We had to halt all proceedings until the asbestos people from BOCES came in to do the testing, the hot testing, to make sure that is there asbestos in the floor, in the mastic, etc. We're waiting for that, and our insurance company was also out there, but there seems to be that there is multiple locations in the mansion that have been damaged and or are in need of repair.
So is the likelihood that the insurance company will cover it?
Yes, yes.
Good. Questions or comments?
Where did the leak start? On what floor? How many floors were involved altogether?
The leak started, I believe, on the top floor, and from what I am gathering, it involved 2 or 3 floors.
It should be, I was told that it was the utility sink directly across from the bathroom outside the superintendent's office. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Tanya.
Lisa, am I hearing you correctly that the amount of water that leaked out filled the entire pool?
I don't know that it filled the entire pool, but a majority of the pool, yes, correct. Yeah, there was a lot of damage that was done. Correct.
So this sounds like a massive job, because I mean, never mind that they'll have to first drain that pool.
They have to truck the water out.
Right, right. And then that alone is very expensive. And then what does that mean, that they have to rip up the floors and rebuild? I mean, what is the actual work that's involved here?
Well, that's a very good question, and we are still trying to evaluate that, because we can't have anybody in there until the asbestos testing is done.
Okay.
Jessica?
Hi, this is probably too late to bring this up, but if no one's using this building or any other buildings, can water be turned off? Kind of like when you go on vacation, you turn the water off in your house just so you don't have a water boiler, your boiler breaks and leaks. And I know it's probably too late, but just for going forward, kind of always having like if space is not being used, turn the water source off.
Yep. Well, Jessica, that is a very good question, because I asked the same thing, but you know what, in the winter time, You don't want to turn the water off because the pipes will freeze. So, you need to keep them on for, certain flow or whatever. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. But from what I gather, we were trying to maintain the building as much as we could until it was operational.
Dave?
Yeah, so the pipe doesn't exist in a vacuum. There are other pipes in that building. So what are we faced with here? A problem that's gonna present itself every now and then?
Oh, you know what, Dave? I completely agree with you. I think that this was just the beginning, in all honesty.
I have to check the BCS to see what the plumbing replacement listing is.
Correct. Yep.
Katie?
Yeah, I'm just wondering so it happened over the weekend. So is it mansion specific, or could this happen at any building that we have on campus? Like, is there
We have a facilities disaster at least twice a year of some kind.
Right, but I know my point is
get that BCS number down by fixing all of our systems that are in the worst condition.
No, but my point is, like, there should be an alert system somehow. I mean, in an ideal world, right? For weekends and vacations, what happens over Christmas break when are there custodians or monitors checking buildings? Because
there is.
Like, how do
there
we?
is. No,
So we
Katie,
have
there is.
plans.
We pay people. We pay custodians to come in on Saturday and Sunday to walk the buildings to make sure everything is okay, that something hasn't happened. Does it happen at the mansion? I can't tell you that it does or it doesn't. I really would have to double check, but I know that we do have people who come into every one of our buildings to make sure that there is nothing that is going to surprise us.
Well, it apparently didn't happen this weekend. If there are supposed to be people going through the, I mean, this is very concerning. And if you're paying someone to do that, you should make sure they do their job. I'm sorry to get annoyed, but this is ridiculous.
Nope, you're correct. You're correct. I just have to, I can't comment. I just have to double check with Mr. Falcone, who was the person in charge, who was doing the checks, doing the rounds, etc. No, you're right. You're right.
Ashley?
Just need a second there. Yeah, I'm kind of wondering at this point if the mansion is something that's worth our effort. I mean, we have the roof project. Even if we get this whole pool thing remedied, I mean, besides the replacement and all that, we know the space as it was suboptimal to begin with, especially for what we were using it for. So I'm kind of wondering if maybe we need to have a little bigger long-term conversation on this as to whether we still want to continue pursuing using the mansion for anything at this point. Because everything in that building at this point is extremely old and has not been able to be replaced, right? So all of it has exceeded its useful life expectancy in my mind. So I think we need to have that conversation.
Okay, so we have a recommendation to go forward with the creation of a way of moving our money around that we've already allocated for this. So you're saying that, okay. Yes, we need to have a discussion.
So
David, in my head, I have a particular opinion. I think having the mansion staff take up floor space in Woodlands High School that could have been used, especially in a COVID environment, to accommodate more students in person, all of that. I think the mansion has a purpose, and I think its purpose is to be mostly an administration building. But maybe not everybody agrees with that. I know the board did say go forward with this, so I think we've had the discussion before. The real question in my mind is the insurance company going to pay for this? If they're going to pay for it, then I don't think the dynamics have changed. If they're not going to pay for it, then it's worth having the conversation again. That's my opinion. Tanya.
So I have a question and then I have a comment. So my question is, I believe, David, that at one point you said that that we actually have an obligation to maintain the mansion because the way that the land that the Warburg estate was given to us, that there is a excuse me, that there's a clause in there that requires us to maintain this building.
It must be weather tight or raised to the ground. Raising it to the ground would cost about $2 million. So if you dispose of it properly, the way we're trying to do with the caretaker's house, it would cost you a couple of $1 million to tear it down. Okay.
Okay.
And then you'd have nothing. And it has historical value to me. It has floor space value for as a home for the staff in the mansion. So if I look at those two things and I look at the potential expenditure, it doesn't add up for me to do away with it at this point. So I just want to say that I am in complete agreement, and I would even go further to say that I think it's really criminal that the way that this building has been neglected and then abandoned. It is a historical building, and also I think you're right that it has a practical that it could serve its practical purpose of housing administration and board meetings, etc. So I am very torn because I'm looking at these comments, people saying our children need better facilities, and I completely agree with that. At the same time, this is a historic building which still serves some practical purpose, and once again, I am just wondering if there is a way of getting some external funding to help us really restore this building. I mean, the first thing is that we need to put a roof on it, and I am actually shocked that the water was not turned off. Because it was literally abandoned over a year ago, and so it is what it is now. But I mean, I think that I think we need to try to find ways of keeping it. Remember Anthony Stewart Cousins just before COVID hit?
Yes.
We asked for sources of funding for the buildings, and finally she was in a position of enough power, and there was enough money in the coffers such that something could be done. And she there were two pieces. One was, we'll give you a shot in the arm in terms of general facilities funding, and the second was, can you do something for us for the historic Warburg Mansion? She said, I think I could do something. And so that possibility was there, and then COVID happened and the roof caved in, and we haven't gone back. So we need to go back.
Okay. I agree.
Yes, Cousins. Dave. You have your hand up.
Sorry, technical things. That was just a carryover. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So good. So any other comments or questions about that? I can see we need more information. The insurance company has to get back to us. The asbestos testing stuff has to come back. Gosh, I think this thing might deserve its own tab. Ashley.
So David, do we plan on post July 6th? I guess at that point, we should probably bring this up with the new board and have that conversation.
Sure, we can do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Plumbing. Disaster. And
David.
mansion future. Okay.
David,
Yes, Carlos.
quick question. And I know that we talked about this before, and all the federal funding that is coming for, basically reimbursing districts on the expenditures during the COVID-19 pandemic. And there is also an additional investment coming in terms of infrastructure. So I'm not sure to what extent that funding opportunity will help us in terms of these ideas. And I'm sure that I can definitely put my head with Lisa, and we can try to look for some information, because this is still very very limited. We don't have much information on the new funding. I know it's still under discussion and everything, but I can foresee, I can definitely forecast that the federal government is trying to infuse this money into the states. And at one point, then probably the state will actually do it through the agencies, including the state education department and then the schools.
Correct.
We just need to be on the
Just
lookout and
happened. We're gonna do
don't
another
miss the train. Don't miss that bus. So yeah, I think that's something I just wanted to mention here. I don't know if Lisa already has something in her radar on this, but it's definitely something that we should be looking carefully.
Okay, very good. It's now 8:30 or very close to it. Lisa, can you very quickly go over where you are on a long-range financial plan? We've already done the capital reserve information, but I know it was in our goals for this year. I don't know how far we got. Can you tell us?
Yes, definitely. And I apologize for not providing you with a spreadsheet. I have a spreadsheet that I am working with from the Office of the State Comptroller. It goes by function and by object, which anybody in the school world, Carlos, will know what I'm talking about. I will provide this to all of you. It goes back 3 years, so it shows us where we have been, what happened in the last 3 years. It shows us where we are now, and the little bit of the crux in all of it is because of COVID. Okay, so I'm analyzing our salaries and our supplies and our expenditures because this year it just doesn't look or compare to the last 3 years. Well, why is that? Well, that's probably because of COVID. All right. And it is what it is, but I just want to make sure that it is comparable. And then what this does is it projects, we will project out 4 years to see where we're going, where we're headed. And really, if you think about it, a budget is all about salaries and benefits. So you have to have your collective bargaining agreements done and the benefits. And anything outside of that is piddly, okay? Except for, which I'm trying to account for if you guys want to go for a bond, okay? To do some of this major work that has been identified in the building condition survey. So I'm working on that. I didn't want to give it to you and confuse you and then have to amend it, but I will have it to you all for the next meeting.
Okay, very good. Any questions or comments on that? All right, so I will, assuming I'm still on the committee, and even if I'm not, we will push for an August meeting, and I will draft and forward our recommendations to the board for their consideration, and we'll go from there. Are there any other topics that anyone wants to bring up before we adjourn? And I see a hand from a completely blackened screen. Chris.
Sorry, as always. Just a quick update on the survey that was happening and the encroachment issue. I saw surveyors a couple months ago. I was wondering if the project was done and letters were being sent or where we are on that.
Yes, you are completely correct, Chris. Survey was done. We identified, I would say, approximately 8 to 10 properties that encroached on our property, and we have sent them letters. Some of them have responded to us, and Mike Falcone is going to meet with some of those people to identify why they are encroaching on our property, etc. But other than that, we haven't had much of a response.
So do we have a next step
Yep. So we sent out these letters. We told them that by July 1st, they had to amend their property, remove their equipment, etc., off of our property. If not, then we will take the next step to ensure that this is done.
Okay, so hopefully by August, when I ask about this again, we have some more feedback from the other property owners who haven't replied.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Another quick question. Now that things are opening back up, are the buildings, summer school is going in the buildings, summer camps are going in the buildings. Are the buildings going to be available for other organizations to use starting in the fall? Is that a discussion the board needs to have? This committee? What's the, or is it dependent on what the state says?
Yeah. I know the fitness center we talked about was going to be open in the fall. What other facilities are you thinking of? I mean,
just in general. I mean, sometimes the basketball courts are given to different organizations.
Okay,
Got
the indoor
two
stuff,
hats on.
right,
The Boy
the
Scout,
rental stuff.
scouting groups use the facilities. Just different facility use permits.
That's a Lisa question.
You know what? I'm not sure, Chris. I'd have to check into that for you.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you. And last
Facility.
question, the transportation contract. I'm just wondering when that's up for renewal.
So, good question. The transportation contract can be renewed for up to 5 years. And I believe we are in year 3. So it just rolls over. We were just waiting for the CPI because all contracts can only increase up to what the CPI is as of May. I received that, it's 3.2%. We are providing the contract amendments to Royal Coach so that they get that. Frank Gunn, as you see, resigned as of June 30th, and that is because we are going with Fiber Fundamentals, which is a transportation consulting firm, to offer that service, which Frank will be a part of.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Did I understand that you were saying that Frank resigned so that he could go work with this new company?
And then we're BOCES aidable, and so we end up saving money.
Correct. So Frank is a retired New York State employee. So we had to get a waiver every year for Frank's services. It gets harder and harder every year. And Frank has done such a phenomenal job for us that we could go through BOCES, through a company that we asked that we want Frank. So Frank was hired through BOCES to provide this service for us so that we could bypass all of that civil service requirements.
Thank you for explaining.
Chris, you have your hand up? No, okay. All right, are there any other comments or questions or issues that anyone wants to bring up? Hearing none, I thank you and wish you a happy summer. Do I hear a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.